Zant, the usurper king. The one who claims the throne for himself with brute force and takes out Midna while doing so. He goes on to conquer Hyrule and destroy everything in his path, but in the end, he gets defeated. But what would have happened if he actually won? What if Zant conquered Hyrule and never got challenged? Well, it's time to find out. Now, how did all of this start? Well, presumably, Zant was to be next in the line for the throne. But was skipped over and his position was filled by Midna instead. This led him to lose trust in the royal family of the Twilight Realm, which added on to the fact that he hated that the Twilight were trapped in the Twilight Realm like insects in a cage. This made him seek his own path. Ganon, who was cast into the Twilight Realm by the sages after his failed execution, appeared to him in a fiery manifestation of his face. Posing as a god, Ganon offers to impart Zant with his power. Using his newfound power, Zant overthrew Midna and turned her into an imp, depriving her of her magic powers she was granted as leader of the Twilight. He changed all the inhabitants of the realm into shadow beasts, and his ultimate goal became spreading Twilight across Hyrule, to make way for the Twilight to return to the world that he believed rightfully belonged to them. He invaded Hyrule Castle, and Zelda dropped her sword as a symbol of submission, and so he took over. But in Link's adventure, he would free parts of Hyrule and would eventually defeat him. But what if that never happened? Let's first take a look at the citizens of Hyrule. What would Zant do with them? Well, like he said, he has a hatred for the royal family of Hyrule, and by the looks of it, the Hylians in general. So there are a couple of options here. First up, he could let the Hylians stay where they are and treat them as second-class citizens. They would become some sort of slaves, and would work for the Twilight, or just hide from them and live a life in the shadows. Well, if you look at Kakariko Village when it's shrouded in twilight, then we can see that the people are scared to death and are all in hiding. So the shadow beasts completely took over, so in this instance, they went into hiding and the monsters took control. They even attacked one of the people in the village, and that person disappeared. But would it stay like this in the long run? Would they try to escape the twilight-shrouded areas? Well, of course, but they would never succeed, since it's impossible. Hyruleans normally cannot enter areas engulfed in twilight unless a creature draws them in through the curtain. Midna's able to pull Link into a curtain of twilight, being a Twilight herself. Once someone has entered, it's often impossible to escape or recover. Only with the help of a member of the Twilight race can a lost soul or anything trapped in there escape. But what would they do with all the useless Hylians? We haven't seen any of them being used as slaves. But some of them did disappear. Actually, almost all the inhabitants of Kakariko Village went missing and didn't return when you freed the area from the Twilight. Where did they all go? Is Zant locking all of them up and that's it? Well, no. The prison of Hyrule Castle isn't filled with civilians, so that's not the case. Well, there is one option why they take people away. Maybe Zant wants to banish all the Hylians to the Twilight Realm, just like they did to his people. So they would have to live there, and the Twilight would have Hyrule all for themselves. This would most likely be a fitting revenge in Zant's eyes, since he clearly stated that he hated the cage named the Twilight Realm. And this would be bad news for the Hylians, since I'm not really sure if they would be able to survive there. However, they could always turn into Twilight, and this might even happen over time in the now Twilight-covered Hyrule. Who knows in what ways they would evolve? They could easily turn into Twilight because of the effects of the Twilight on them. Then the entire problem would be solved for Zant, since everyone would be one of his servants. However, this depends on the situation, of course. But there's also another option, which is actually stated in the game and would help out Zant a lot. Barnes hints towards the fact that they are not only composed of transformed Twilights, but also have the ability to turn humans into their kind, meaning that they are not restricted to one species. So if this is true, then they could just transform the humans and they all become one. This does explain what happened to the missing people. This would also make Zant's army stronger. So if he could do this, then we can almost be 100% certain that he did. So Hylians would most likely be banished, transformed, end up being slaves, or hide their entire lives. But what would the Twilight do? Well, they are just followers of Zant. They're just mindless monsters that he corrupted. And we have never seen them do anything special, so I'm not quite sure. And this brings us to another point. What is Zant's plan as soon as he has the entire kingdom completely under control? Well, he's stated many times that he has a hatred for the royal family. So, is he gonna hunt them all down and capture them? Well, he did lock up Zelda in a tower, but what was he planning with her? Easy. He did it for Ganondorf, the person who gave him all of his powers and helped him take over the entire kingdom of Hyrule. The only thing he wants to do with Zelda is take her Triforce piece, and after that she is useless. So Ganondorf would most likely take that, and would then pass her on to Zant. And he would most likely end her, since he hates her and her entire family. And Link, he would most likely face the same fate, losing his power and dying in the end. But what happens then? What would Ganondorf do from that point on? Would the deal between him and Zant last? His goal's taking over the world, so would he betray Zant and take Hyrule for himself, or will he keep his puppet in place? Well, Zant does everything he wants, and their goals are pretty similar, so I think he won't. It wouldn't be necessary at all. Ganondorf already has complete control over him. And if Ganon does take over, then it would end up the same as the Sacred Realm in A Link to the Past. A dark, depressing version of Hyrule. So both situations are terrible. But Zant will most likely rule, and Ganondorf will control everything in the background. But what about the Resistance? They are a group trying to restore peace in Hyrule. Their members include Telma, Shad, Link, and way more. Russell has also been a member for some time, who decided to seek them out after recovering from the attack on Ordon Village. Could they be a problem for Zant? Could the Hylians start an uprising and take back the kingdom? In the game they are a really small group and aren't really a threat. But in a situation where Zant would be the permanent ruler, people would get sick of the situation and would join as soon as they can. And so it would become bigger, bigger, and bigger. But even if it becomes huge, they wouldn't stand a chance. Shadow beasts are strong enough that only a few were needed to overrun and defeat the many Hyrulean soldiers guarding Princess Zelda. So a bunch of citizens with not a lot of resources and training could never win. But I have to admit, the Hylian soldiers are pretty weak in this game. They run away as soon as the fight starts, but still, the Resistance would never stand a chance. Especially not with Ganondorf helping Zant, since thanks to him, he is essentially immortal. But wait, there is one option. What about freeing the areas from the Twilight? In each province, the Tears of Light of the Light Spirits need to be recovered from the Shadow Insects in order for them to be revived. They will give you the Vessel of Light in order to collect and carry the Tears. Once the Light Spirits regain their power, the Twilight is lifted and the inhabitants return to normal. So they could always start to free areas and then defend them from invading forces. And in time, they will become stronger and stronger. This way, it will turn into some sort of endless war, until another hero emerges and defeats Ganondorf. But this depends if the Light Spirits trust them, and if they are able to find all the insects and defeat them. Overall, it's a bit unlikely, since they probably can't pull it off. But what about King Baldwin? Would he still help Ganondorf and Zant? Well, of course he would. After the fight he has with Link at Hyrule Castle, he says, "I follow the strongest side. That's all I've ever known." So if Zant takes over, he will certainly play a role in this, so yet another problem for the Hylians. And so you see that it would be devastating for the world if Zant was its ruler. The world is filled with darkness and fear. The Hylians would most likely die out or live a life filled with horror, and Zant has everything he ever wanted. But wait, that's not all. We have one big surprise left, the winner of the Dark Photo Contest. After looking at loads of pictures, I found the best one. It's called the Mona Chucky by Ryan Sonic YT, and you are the winner. This one was so funny to me, and also the reference and the name were extremely good. Now, don't be sad if I didn't pick you. I will release an art book collection online where you can find all the creations, since there are many more very good ones. It was so fun to see all of you making all kinds of memes and art pieces. Thanks for being so awesome, and my dog liked it as well. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to watch more videos, click the annotations on the screen right now. I'm very sorry, my voice is a bit broken. I don't know if you were able to hear it, but I have a light flu. I'm sorry.